Hello and welcome to the start of a reading vlog in which I let the Icelandic weather decide what I read. This might seem a little bit random, but basically a lot of booktubers will do themed reading vlogs where they read around a certain theme, or they let something in particular decide what they read that week, and I really like watching these. I think they're really fun and creative, and given where I live in Iceland, the weather is super changeable, and I just thought this would be a really fun way to get involved in this kind of trend, I guess, or and just have a bit of fun with it. So let me explain how it's going to work. Basically, I'm going to use Storygraph's mood feature. So if you don't know, Storygraph is like an alternative to Goodreads. One of the things I really like about Storygraph is that you can look up moods of the books. So is this book like an adventurous book? Is it like an inspiring book? How am I going to feel when I'm reading this book? And I really like that. I'm basically going to use that tool, and I'm going to engage with a literary tool called pathetic fallacy. So this is when the weather is used in literature to convey a sense of atmosphere, of mood. So like the dark clouds are rolling in is like a kind of ode or something ominous. So I'm starting off with Storygraph's mood feature. I'll put it on the screen and you'll be able to see all the different moods you can choose from through Storygraph. And what I've done is I've gone through and I've taken each of these and I've ascribed a weather to them. So I've decided, okay, if you're in the mood for something adventurous, maybe outside, it's snowing. So that's where I've started off. I've then paired challenging with windy, because you will not believe in Iceland how challenging the wind is. Yesterday my partner went out for a walk just to pick up some bread at the shop, and he said that he could not walk at certain points because the wind was so strong, like it was actually holding him in place. So it's very challenging, the wind here. Dark, I've put as overcast. We get these really black clouds some days, and that's kind of the mood I'm going for when that comes up. Emotional, rain, simply because you get so many things in films, etc., where someone's like looking out of the window in a sad scene, and there's like water falling down the window, and it's all atmospheric, and I just thought that would be quite funny in a sense. Speaking of funny, I've chosen to match funny books with constantly changing weather, because you will not believe the amount of times the weather here has just made us laugh, because you're looking outside and you're like, wow, it's like really beautiful sunny, next minute hailstones, and you've got to laugh because there's nothing else that you can do. I've then paired hopeful with like sun poking through the clouds, so like it's a sort of overcast day and there's like a bit of sun peeking through. Informative, this was a hard one, but I've gone with earthquake activity, because I thought, well, informative, you might learn a lot about earthquakes, you might look up some information about earthquakes when they're happening. Inspiring, I've gone for sunny, blue skies. That would be more like today. It's a beautiful day today, it's absolutely stunning outside, and you do feel inspired, you feel creative, you feel uplifted when that's happening, so I wanted to pair those together. Light-hearted was another one that was quite hard to pick, but I've linked it to the lightness, and I've gone for Northern Lights forecasted. So if there's going to be forecasted Northern Lights that night, or if we're taken by surprise by Northern Lights, I will be reading something light-hearted. Now, mysterious, I have paired with something called iridescent clouds, and this is something I have never seen anywhere else apart from in Iceland. I know that you do get them other places, but I've just not seen them. And they are these rainbow clouds, these absolutely stunning rainbow clouds you get. It's very rare. I've lived here 18 months and I've seen them twice, but when they do come, they are just gorgeous to look at. Now, reflective, I've gone for sunny and cloudy, and that's because we get these really reflective clouds sometimes, and the sun is absolutely blinding. Relaxing, I've gone for no wind, blue skies, and a quiet sort of feel to the day. And the next one is sad, and now, while emotional was the kind of rain coming down, this one is like a really dreich day. So that's a Scottish word, and it basically means like it's overcast, it's like miserable, the rain's just constantly falling. All you want to do is be inside in the warm and coziness. Tens, I've gone for storms and weather warnings. So weather warnings are not the most common here, but it's a very risky thing to go out your house if there are weather warnings, especially when it's orange and red weather warning. And that's really all of the moods that Storygraph has, that I have a sort of assigned a mood to. And my plan is to kick this off tomorrow. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm quite excited to just like try this out and see how it goes. and have a bit of fun with it. Hi, hello, good morning. This morning you wouldn't really think that the sun has risen. It is very dark and overcast, and there is a tiny slither where you can see like sun poking through, and there's quite a fair amount of wind still, so it's a very strange kind of weather day. But let me just turn some lights on. Lovely. Okay, so bear in mind that we've got like dark skies, we've got a tiny slither of sun that's trying to push its way through, and we've got quite a lot of wind. I'm actually going to see if I can get something that fits all of those. So that would be challenging, dark, and hopeful. I feel like dark and hopeful do not go together, but it's possible that someone's categorised a book like that. Maybe. Let's find out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my tagged books. So I'm going to go under 300 pages because realistically the chances of me reading like over 300 pages in one day is quite unrealistic. So we've got challenging for wind, we've got dark for the clouds, and we've got hopeful for the brief bit of sunlight that's coming through. And let's see if we can get all of the selected moods for that. No, 0 books. Okay, let's see. I would say the biggest, like if there's only one mood to go for today, it's the darkness, because it's really dark in here. So we've got 4 books, that's good, right? Okay, so on the basis that I really want to spend some time taking in both In Black and White and The Accidental Spy, because they're both non-fiction and I'd want to just take my time with them a bit more. So I'm going to have a intense thriller. Now, Watch Me doesn't have page information, so I looked up online and it's like over the 300 pages, so that's fine. I'm going to go with Open House by Kate Seiss, and just see what that's about. I think it's a murder mystery thriller. I don't read a lot of thrillers. I used to read a load of thrillers when I was younger. I do think the mood of the day is this darkness, and having this kind of dark read should feed into that and be quite interesting to see what that turns out like. So let me get my Kindle and start reading. Okay, so it's now time to wrap up my thoughts about Open House by Kate Seiss. Now, I've been reading this all day. It's now evening. As well as reading, I got distracted by cooking a huge bit of pork and eating that with my partner. And then there was a Northern Lights display happening in Norway. We had too much cloud. It's been cloudy all day here to see it, but we watched that on the TV, which was lovely. So that was fun. But I have just finished Open House and I didn't love it, I'm not going to lie. So I liked that there was multiple perspectives. So basically, to tell you what it's about, because I realise I haven't done that yet, it's about, it's 10 years after a woman has gone missing. Well, she's 21 at the time, so she's a young woman when she goes missing. And it's 10 years after her disappearance, and the family is wanting answers, I guess, and a few things happen which kind of restart the investigation, one of which is that a bracelet is found that they believe belongs to the victim at the scene that they believe she disappeared from. So that all kind of happens really quickly. That's the synopsis on the back, and that all happens very quickly. I would say within the prologue we know that all that has happened, which is good. I actually really like that, because I don't like when a book is described in totality by its synopsis and you're just like, right, when's it going to come to something I don't know about? And basically the whole mystery is what actually happened that night to the young woman, who is called Emma. So we do have some things from her perspective, which I think is necessary simply because there's a lot of things that wouldn't make sense without her point of view through it. We also have 2 other narrators. One is her sister and one is an old college teacher that she had at the time that she went missing. So it's quite a good variety, and it kind of leads you to think, like, it puts more suspicious people in the ring, which is quite good. I will say that initially there was a lot of characters introduced, and I found this quite difficult to kind of keep track of them and like work out who's who and like figure out distinct characters for all of them. And there was a few times I found myself like flipping back to earlier in the book just to try and work out what was going on, and I don't really like when that happens and I have to do that.
I kind of like characters being developed as we go, and I think in general with regards like characters and plot and the themes in the book as well, I feel like there was so much more that could have been developed through that. Like a lot of it was very surface level, and it felt like very like you were aware at all points that this is fiction. Like you had to really suspend disbelief at times to kind of follow the narrative. So was it dark? Because that's the emotion that I was supposed to be conjuring up today. I would say it was dark, like especially the ending was dark. I was disappointed with the ending simply because I saw that coming really early on. Like I would say about 10% in, I had a theory and my theory was right. So like I don't really rate that in thrillers. Like I like lots of twists and turns, and so in general I would say I was disappointed in this read. And I would probably give it like 2 stars. Overall, it doesn't get the best write-up or ratings on Storygraph. So I know I'm not alone in feeling like this one could have been developed more. But I'm looking forward to seeing what tomorrow brings, what the mood of the day will be. Let's hope the cloud clears and we get a different mood of the day for tomorrow.
Hello and welcome to day 2 of this reading vlog. I'm a little bit later starting filming today simply because I went for a nice walk outside. I wanted to get a better feel for what the weather was like. When the sun first started coming up, there was like quite a lot of clouds, but I could see the sun kind of trying to push its way through. And so I wanted to see how that would progress as the sun actually properly rose. So I went for a nice walk down by the lake, and then I went to the library and picked up some library holds, which was nice. And of course, I only had one hold to pick up and I came away with about 7 or 8 books. So true to form as ever. So of course, with the weather being sunny, poking through the clouds kind of vibe, I'm going for hopeful today in terms of the mood that I'll be reading. And I'm quite excited about that. I don't know if you noticed yesterday, but yesterday the mood was dark, and I didn't even realise, but I was wearing black clothing. So today I thought I could maybe carry this on through the week, and I decided today to put on my top, which is like from a mental health charity called Blurt Foundation, and it reads "The sun will rise again." And with that, I thought I would pair my jumper, which reads "Hope," and I'm just going to stick that on just now. And you know, it's funny because yesterday I genuinely was feeling quite like anxious. I wouldn't have said I felt dark, but I felt kind of anxious, and I thought maybe it was to do with the book being a thriller and like all the rest of that. And today I do genuinely feel quite hopeful, so there's definitely something in this pathetic fallacy thing. And yeah, I'm excited to see how the day goes on and how the weather progresses. I'm hoping it will go purely blue skies and be more of like an inspiring kind of vibe. But for now, we're going to stick with hopeful. So without further ado, let's get into choosing the book. So I'll get my Storygraph up and start screen recording. So I've got all the same filters, less than 300 pages again, and we're going for hopeful today. And let's see what it comes up with. Okay, and now straight off the bat, I see that Brown Baby is on there. Now this is a memoir, and I started it late one night and then thought, right, I'm going to return to this when I'm more awake. And then I started this vlog. So this is actually the perfect time to read this. I only got about 5% of the way and I read the first chapter. So far, even just that one chapter, I just thought this is going to be an absolute beauty. I totally loved it, and I'm quite fortunate that it comes out in a few days, so it's actually quite a good timing to read it. I got it via NetGalley. My wish was granted, and that was lovely. I was very excited to see that. Yeah, I'm just going to start reading and get into it, I guess, and I'll check in with you later on. Good morning. It's the next day from when I filmed my last clip. I finished Brown Baby just this morning. I had the final few pages to read this morning, and I fell asleep reading it last night. And I'm on my first cup of coffee. I was a bit slower reading this one mostly because I started later with the vlog, and me and my partner had a lovely evening eating Dominoes and watching Inside Out, so I got a bit distracted, I guess, but still I got the book finished before the time to start the new one. The sun hasn't risen yet, so it's not really clear what the day will be like. I'm not really sure how to talk about Brown Baby, to be honest. It is an account that Nikesh Shukla has written to his daughters, who I think at the time of writing are like 3 and 6. He starts off talking about things like race, gender, food, and like he had me totally engrossed. And I would say for the first sort of 40% of this book, I was very like engrossed in his narrative, his way of writing.
and his story, like what he had to say and what he wanted to tell his daughters. I was really like interested in that. And then in other places I found myself frustrated by the structure and by his kind of meandering way of writing. My overall feeling at the end of finishing it is this book needed a few years of maturity. Like it needed more time to sit and brew and perfect and like really hone in on what he wanted to tell his daughters. I felt like he held a lot back, and I understand why, because he mentions like having received threatening messages that are directed at his family, so he wants to have a level of privacy. But then when you write a memoir, you are telling your life story, so the reader has an expectation. And I was thinking about this myself. Why do I feel entitled to certain elements of his story? It's his story to tell how he likes. But I feel like going into a memoir, I'm not expecting someone to be feeling like the person's constantly holding something back. And I did feel that way. I especially felt that way with regards to his relationship with his wife, who doesn't feature really very much in the book, which for me felt very strange. Like if my dad was writing a book for me, I would expect him to talk about my mum. My mum and dad are still together. Shukla and his wife are still together. I would have expected to have more in that, about that. I even thought maybe he would introduce a chapter, how do I talk to you about relationships? Because that's a huge thing. There were so many parts where I thought like this just needs longer in an editorial room, longer brewing as thoughts and feelings progress as you get older and you see different things, and I felt it was written a little bit prematurely. And that's just my own opinion. At the end, I wasn't left with the hope that I was expecting to be left. So I'm disappointed that I didn't love this one. But I do read quite a lot of memoirs. If you watch my top non-fiction reads of 2020, you'll know that I loved a lot of the memoirs I read last year. So yeah, it was disappointing. It's probably one of my most disappointing reads so far this year. I have read a couple that have been disappointing. So onwards and upwards. I'm waiting for the sun to rise. I'm going to go for a walk and get ready for today's reading. So it's time for me to choose what book I will read today. So I've been out for my walk. It was a lovely little walk. I went down by the shore. There was a little art exhibit happening, and I looked at that for a little bit, and I walked along to like a little lighthouse place, which is lovely, and I watched the water crash against the shore, and it was just a lovely time. So the weather today is very overcast, it's very cold, but most of all it's very, very windy. I took a little clip where you can kind of see my trousers reacting to the wind, just to kind of show you how strong the wind was, but it was genuinely very, very strong wind. So I'm going to go with the theme of challenging. To match my clothing to that, I looked up some challenges online I could do, clothing challenges, and a lot of them were to do with wearing what you already own. And so I decided to wear something that I don't usually wear, and that is this little light summer dress, which is from H&M, and it's very lightweight, and I have paired it with a high neck top to kind of keep me warm, because it's not the warmest of clothing, but I don't wear this dress often at all, especially living here in Reykjavik. Time to choose what book I read. So again today I've got all my filters as usual, less than 300 pages, and I'm going to see what challenging brings up. So I've got 22 books to choose from, which is actually a lot. Let me have a look through and see what we have. Okay, so I'm going to be kind to myself here. I'm going to choose one that is a shorter length than the last two I've been reading. And I'm going to go for The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. And part of that is because I have this out in my library, and when I went to pick up the hold, it is this absolutely humongous book, and it is almost like comically large, but I'm thinking, I haven't looked inside it, but I'm thinking it must be a special edition. Let me go and get my copy and I'll show you just how large this is. Okay, so for context, this is a paperback. So these are all James Baldwin. This is a mini one, which I picked up, so paperback, mini one. Now, this is the special edition. Look at the size of this. It is ginormous, but there must be photographs in here. I think, there are photographs throughout it and quotes and things like that. So I think it'll be a lovely one to read and just enjoy over my coffee. And I'll check in with you once I have read it and let you know what I think. Okay, so apologies if there's any background noise. The dishwasher is on, but I wanted to film this clip before I went to bed. So this is The Fire Next Time. It is a special edition with photography from Steve Shapiro and writing from James Baldwin and his sister. And it is absolutely stunning. It is genuinely beautiful. Like, wow. There were a couple of times where I just took like such a deep inhale of breath because this totally blew me away. It was just really moving, really stunning. The photographs are absolutely gorgeous, and as ever, I really love James Baldwin's writing. Just phenomenal, 5 stars, no doubt in my mind. If I can, I will show you some of the photography, just to give you an idea of like just how beautiful it really is. I love photography, which is of like people, especially like standing candidly, and so a lot of Steve Shapiro's style is like that, or at least the photos that made it in this album are like that, and they are just absolutely incredible. And what he really does is he captures a time, a moment in history, a moment that none of us should forget. And there is writing at the start of this collection from John Lewis, and I'll read that to you now, a small section of it. He says, "So much has changed in America since the 1960s, yet at the same time it is jarring to realise that the fundamental struggle for human dignity is still teeming in American streets. More than 50 years later, Baldwin's words still read like they were written yesterday. The signs depicted in Shapiro's photographs could be the messages of protest today. We march for first-class citizenship now. We march for jobs for all now. Stop police killings. We can subtract legalised segregation and racial discrimination as practiced in the Deep South, but we have to add the new Jim Crow, mass incarceration, widespread unemployment, rampant violence, now all entrenched in our society." And I think that really speaks to like my kind of reflections reading this book, and I think it's a beautiful foreword. If you work in a library and your library doesn't have a copy of this, I would recommend it wholeheartedly. If you're interested in reading it, suggest your library buys it, because I would imagine it would be very expensive for one thing, but also I just feel like you buy it for a library and so many more people will get the opportunity to read it. When I think about this book and like the theme of the day being challenging, and I think about in what ways this book is challenging, I would say it's emotionally challenging. I mean, I don't know what will come tomorrow, what will follow this, but there's no way anything could follow this in terms of the intensity of emotion that was felt when I read this. Just so incredible, beautiful. Loved it. Loved it. Hello and welcome to the final day of this reading vlog. I am feeling very happy and excited today. We are currently enjoying a beautiful sunrise, but the mood of the day is actually being already decided for us. So last night we had a really, really beautiful Northern Lights display, and my partner really loves like photography and specifically taking photos and videos of the Northern Lights. He's Frozen Brit Abroad on Instagram if you're interested. But he managed to film some gorgeous footage right from our flat, so we didn't even have to leave the house. It was absolutely perfect. And just such a beautiful display. We had a lovely time watching it. So what that means is that today's theme is light-hearted. And that just seems like such a beautiful way to end this vlog, so I'm really happy about that and really looking forward to finding out what my final book will be. First off, on the case of the outfit, matching outfits, today I thought I would go for something fun and just like quite playful, and so I'm wearing this dungarees dress and I'm wearing a very colourful scrunchie on the top of my head and a polka dot shirt. So hopefully that's like light-hearted enough to fit the theme. Without further ado, let's get into choosing the books. So I've got my screen record going and I'm just going to choose light-hearted, and so it's thrown up 18 books, which is good. I'm just going to take a look through and see which ones catch my eye. Okay, so I think I'm going to choose the very first book that I saw, Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. This is one I'm really, really excited about, and I was fortunate enough to get an art via NetGalley. It's a sapphic relationship. The girl finishes up her studies, goes to Vegas, and ends up getting married, I believe. And yeah, I'm really excited to read this, so this seems like the perfect time. I was actually going to film a most anticipated books coming out in February kind of video, like what I did for January. But there's now very little point because I've read 2 of them in this vlog. In fact, that might only be the only 2 that I'm most excited about. So go me, this is good. Um, so yeah, this will be a good way to finish off the vlog, and I'm excited to see what I think of Honey Girl. Okay, so it's time to wrap up this reading vlog. The final book that I read was Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers, and I absolutely loved it. It was so sweet. I've actually just filmed a little review of the book, so that'll be coming out later in the month. But it was just so lovely. So I told you what it's about. It follows a lesbian relationship who the couple gets married in Vegas under the influence of alcohol, and it basically just follows them coming to terms with the fact that they're married, and at the same time our main character Grace is graduating from a doctorate in astronomy, and it's basically about how she comes to her kind of coming of age amidst kind of racial and homophobic microaggressions in the job interviews, how she kind of figures out where she wants to, what kind of work she wants to actually do with her doctorate, and what kind of impact she wants to have on the world. So I really loved it. It was so sweet and lovely. It has positive therapy rep, it has good mental health rep. I just thought it was just so good, and I would really recommend it, especially if you like slow burn romance and slow-paced books. This is definitely one for you. So yeah, keep an eye out for my review. That'll be coming out later in February, closer to publication date. But I loved it, and I've really enjoyed this vlog as well. I'm so sad it's come to an end. I don't think there was any grand conclusion that I came to with the vlog. I guess I just felt like at times the mood of the book did impact on my mood, which was interesting. In terms of Honey Girl, would I say that's light-hearted? I personally would say it's got quite a lot of heavy themes, a bit too many for me to class as light-hearted. I would say it's more emotional, reflective, and I guess ultimately you could say it's quite hopeful. But I totally loved it anyway, even if it didn't fit the light-hearted theme. It was still such a nice read. So yeah, I'm really sad that this vlog has now come to an end. I had so much fun filming it and just like playing around with the idea of the weather, choosing my TBR. In some, I suppose, I kind of came to the conclusion that the weather can impact your mood, and the books you read can impact your mood. And so it was kind of like a great big ball of being influenced by weather and books in terms of what mood I experienced that day. But I really enjoyed filming it and playing around with this idea. And if you'd like to try it yourself, do feel free to either use the same prompts or change them for your own climate, and just have a bit of fun with it. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.